The old gravel road leading to the Mason family farm was quiet at dusk, but that night it echoed with the sound of tires and mocking laughter. Emily Mason, a gentle widow who had spent her life raising crops and animals in rural Montana, stood on her porch holding a basket of fresh eggs. She had always been known as the soft-spoken farm mom at the local market, kind, polite, and endlessly patient. But in recent weeks, a group of town bullies, 3 men in their 20s who spent their nights drinking and stirring trouble, had decided to target her. They trespassed on her land, tipped over her feed barrels, and shouted cruel names as they drove by. Emily never fought back. She had no one else at home now except her animals and the memories of her late husband. Miles away, Emily's daughter, Sarah Mason, was finishing a classified training exercise. Sarah was everything her mother wasn't: outspoken, fierce, and deadly skilled. She had joined the military at 18, earned a reputation as one of the toughest in her unit, and eventually became part of an elite Delta Force team. But beneath the uniform, she was still the girl who had grown up feeding chickens and mending fences with her mom. Emily had never told Sarah how bad the harassment had become. She didn't want to worry her. One evening, after a particularly rough day, Emily discovered her barn doors had been broken open. Several bales of hay were burned, and the family's old tractor was spray-painted with obscenities. She knelt in the dirt, clutching her hands to her face, feeling the weight of her loneliness and fear. That night she finally called her daughter, not to ask for help, but just to hear her voice. Sarah immediately sensed something was wrong. "Mom, tell me everything," she demanded quietly. When Emily hesitated, Sarah's instincts kicked in. She had spent her career reading people under pressure. Within minutes, Emily broke down and described the months of torment. Sarah's silence on the other end of the line wasn't cold. It was focused. "I'll be home tomorrow," she said. No arguments. Sarah arrived the next evening in an unmarked truck. She hugged her mother, taking in the sight of the broken barn door and scorched hay. The pain in Emily's eyes stirred something deep in her. She had faced war zones, but nothing compared to seeing her mother afraid on her own land. The bullies returned that night, unaware of the woman waiting for them. They parked at the edge of the field, laughing as they grabbed rocks to throw at the windows. Sarah, dressed in jeans and a plain jacket, stepped out from behind the porch. She didn't yell or wave a weapon. She simply walked toward them with the calm, deliberate movements of someone who had been trained to control every inch of her body. "Hey," she called, her voice steady. "You've had your fun. Now you're done." The men smirked, thinking she was just another farmhand or relative. One of them stepped forward. "And who's gonna stop us?" he sneered. Sarah moved so fast they didn't see it coming. She took the leader's wrist, twisted it into a lock, and had him on the ground in seconds. Another lunged at her, only to be swept aside by a precise kick to the knee. The third tried to run, but she blocked his path, staring him down with eyes that had seen far worse than petty vandalism. She didn't inflict real harm, only enough to immobilize them. With the bullies subdued, she pulled out her phone and called the sheriff, who arrived minutes later. "They've been harassing my mother for months," she told him firmly. "Tonight it ends." The sheriff, long frustrated with the men's behavior but lacking evidence, finally had enough to arrest them on multiple charges, from trespassing to arson. When the patrol car drove away with the men, inside, Emily stood trembling on the porch. "I didn't want you to have to do this," she whispered, tears streaking her face. Sarah wrapped her arms around her. "Mom, you taught me to stand up for what's right. That's all I did." In the weeks that followed, Emily's farm became a place of peace again. Neighbors, inspired by Sarah's stand, began visiting more often, helping her repair the damage. The bullies were sentenced to community service and restitution, forced to work on the very land they had tried to destroy. But the real change wasn't in them, it was in Emily. She began walking into town with her head higher, no longer the timid farm mom but a woman who knew she wasn't alone. Sarah returned to her duties, but she called every evening. Their bond had deepened into something unshakable, a quiet strength built from love and courage. The story of what happened spread through the county. People spoke about the farm mom and her Delta Force daughter not just because of the takedown, but because of the dignity and restraint Sarah had shown. She hadn't sought revenge, she had sought justice. By the time the fields bloomed again that spring, Emily had a new sign hanging on her porch: Mason Farm, where strength grows. It wasn't about her daughter's skills or the bully's punishment. It was a reminder that even the quietest hearts can find courage, and that family, no matter how far apart, can be a force more powerful than fear.